All right. Hello. We are here. We are live. We are streaming now. Presumably, it says so.
Things are starting to ding. So
yeah,
that
I'm
sounds appropriate.
getting buzzers everywhere.
And it's still evening for me. So good evening.
Good evening. Yes.
For about 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Good evening. How was October 14th for you?
It's been a busy one. We've been interviewing new potential new staff members yesterday. And today. So it's been one of them sort of interesting things about what questions do you ask, and because I hate doing the whole just troll through somebody's CV because you got the CV in front of them. Why do you need to do that? Again,
you would have looked over that to begin with, and
and as long as you can vaguely string a couple of sentences together, then I'm good with that. I want to know more about the actual person.
Interviews are always weird. I and talk about them a lot on the it came from and whatnot. But interviews are fun because you are hiring because you have a need, and so most times you will ask questions that fit that need, and then it's always challenging to write questions that address things you don't know you need as well. And it's like how do you gel with this type of situation? In a team environment. I don't know. It's always interesting.
It certainly kept us because of the pandemic. They've had a special scheme that you can get people who've been looking for jobs for a while, which most people have if they've been in particularly in the hospitality industry or stuff like that. Then they will there's some government support and stuff, so we'd take advantage of that in many ways. But the amount of people who are out there who've got some serious qualifications and just didn't realize that you could just go up to people and ask for a job. So it's good. Well, we've got 2 more interviews to do tomorrow, and then we get to make some decisions. So
that's always the hard part too, is the decision making.
Sometimes it isn't. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
I sort of have a I don't know if it's the right thing to say or do, but normally within about the first 30 seconds to a minute, I get the idea whether I can actually work with somebody or not. You'll then get into the details, and there might be other reasons why you may or may not want to hire somebody, but I'll know within very quickly whether I actually want to spend 8 hours a day with this person.
I feel that first impressions are really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so there is a bit of that, and then out of the five we've got, we've got potentially two positions to offer. So we'll it could be exciting.
The worst is when you interview a bunch of people and you're like, do we take this person that may or may not fit, or do we wait because there's a need? And it's like, you're up against time, but then you're also not 100%. You're maybe 80% sure. That's the worst, when you're around that 80% threshold.
I read an interesting article, it must be a few months back now, but the fact that we spend so much time overthinking about if you should hire somebody, we spend so much time over that, and when actually what we should do is hire really quickly, but also then be willing to fire people quickly. So if you get people in and they're great, then because nobody ever shows really what their true colors are on interview, because they might not know the skills that you want themselves. But actually, if you hire somebody and they don't work out, you should have to, after the during the 6-month period or whatever it is that you do for probation, be more than willing to say, actually, it hasn't worked, toodaloo. But I'm not that. I can't be that hard faced. I'm too messy.
I know it's too much of a risk. It's too much of a risk. All right. So tonight we are talking about exoskeletons and the like. I mentioned this on the show, but man, I did a little bit of prep here for the show tonight, linking back to some of the past episodes that Human Factors Cast has done on exoskeletons, and there's quite a few.
You've done quite a lot of them.
And here I was thinking, we should probably talk about exoskeletons because Ergo X is coming up, and anyway, we do a lot of them.
But yeah, they're a cool topic, though, aren't they?
They really are, and they're largely unexplored too. From the human factors space.
Yes,
there's a lot to learn.
Well, so I think there's loads of opportunities to do some work in that space as well, because there's various people are doing research on them, but I still haven't seen anybody really get a real grip of all the productionization of it.
Yeah.
And the real issues that can come out. But yes, as you can see, I sort of went to town on all the issues that could come up and things like that, because there's just loads of them.
Yeah, I added to that list too. So
yes,
we'll get into it. Barry Williams in the chat says, "Hey, how are you guys?"
Hi Barry. I know Barry's a friend of mine. he lives around the corner. Good evening. Good morning, Barry. What you do up at this early hour? But no, great to have you on board.
Very early and or late for you all over there.
Yes.
Have you been getting in naps on Thursdays? You've been filling in for Blake for a while.
So I'm now rescheduled Fridays. Fridays now have between. So normally I would have I'd be up at Stakes. Normally I have an 8:00 meeting, 8:00 team meeting. That has now been cancelled for the next month. And I'm now sleeping till. Well, I've literally scheduled in sleep until 10:00 in the morning on Friday mornings.
That's the way to go.
Well, I can't really do lie-ins, and I guess it's because I've got sort of a bit of a forces background, and so sort of used to just getting up and going. But was it after the second one I did, or maybe even after the first one? It was after the second one, because we had a workshop with some clients in, and I wasn't worth looking at. Apparently, I was grouchy.
Oh,
I know you wouldn't believe it, but I was proper grouchy. And I was like, and Amanda, my wife's going, "You need to get sleep. Either you nap in the afternoon," which I can't do the naps in the afternoon. I just feel rubbish afterwards. And she was like, "No, wipe out Friday morning. Friday morning, you just got to sleep in, because you can't do that every week. Or at least not everybody else can have you doing that every week."
Yeah. Thank you again. Thank you for filling in. I know I've gotten some questions through our email about Blake and whether he's okay. He's fine. And I'll say this on the show too, because I feel like the listeners deserve to know. We are a podcast of integrity, and we like to do things the right way. Blake has accepted a new position in which he has to get approval to do this. And so we are going through the correct channels, and it is just a little bit backlogged, and that's okay. We'll get through it.
Fair enough.
Anyway, yeah. So why don't we, while we're in the pre-show here, why don't we take a couple of these It Came Froms, and we'll see kind of what we're looking at for tonight's episode. We'll see what kind of good questions we have. I haven't actually looked through them since last week.
No, I've chucked a new one in this evening. So the one
great.
Just under blank. So interviewers stated they needed innovation. So it's about, basically people want innovation, but what is innovation?
Okay.
So I quite like that one, because it's something quite close to my heart.
High innovation. Ooh, yeah. How do you define innovation?
Yeah.
Chaotic company. Ooh, boy. Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, let's
it's got it all over it.
We're moving that one in. Unless we find something better.
Yeah.
But we'd have to find two better things or I guess three better things for it to not make it in. So that's good. I am going back to October 7th, which was the episode of last week's, or that was the date of last week's episode. We've talked about portfolio case studies without images before. I feel like we've talked about that fairly recently too.
We talked about portfolios last week.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
companies.
Did we do this jump from a junior to a mid-roll?
I think we did that. Or wait, is that in the bank? That's in the bank, right?
That's in the bank, yeah. Yeah, it is.
Ooh.
Oh, this one about heat maps. Or, as they put it, heat maps are shit. Which I thought was that was subtle.
There's one that I really am interested in your opinion on, and It's more design in nature, but I feel like this could be applied to other things outside of design. So it's using my company's design language in a personal project. So they've defined their company's design language to the point where they find it incredibly intuitive to design with. They're a co-founder of the company, but it's owned by a large conglomerate. They're working on a personal project and basically wanting to know if they can use it. They ask their CEO. It's probably not a big deal, but I'm skeptical. So basically the ask here is this within your right to use if you've helped to find it, if you are a co-founder, if you have CEO approval, but there's another owner. Like, I don't know. There's a lot going on here.
Yeah, I think that's quite a good one because actually you get into the whole intellectual property issue. Who owns if you design using it? What comes out afterwards?
Yeah, that's kind of why I wanted to get to it, is because of that IP issue. Probably see a urologist for that, but did anyone get that joke?
Hold on, I'll just check the chat.
I said the IP issue, and I said probably need a urologist for anyone who missed it.
See, that was almost British in its subtlety.
Oh, I'm flattered.
See, clearly it's becoming a good experience for you. There's one I just saw there which I thought would be quite good, and I've lost. Oh yeah, so there was the I like the there's one on there which is no good for the show, but actually how to phrase this question in a job interview. I've had an interview for a UX designer role, but would like to focus on UX research in the future. So I'd like to ask, will I get the chance to do some user research and develop my skills in this area? Not sure how to phrase it professionally. So my comment is, well, just ask. Will you get to do some user research in the future? I don't see why that's so difficult, personally. Yeah,
I mean, I would. Yeah, that's a great question to ask in an interview. If you're looking to branch out, I mean, like, say, I've always had an interest in this topic or that topic. As long as it's tangentially related, I don't see there any like harm in at least mentioning it, saying, hey, can I get involved?
If it's a large company, then
it's a little easier.
But it's, I mean, again, this is one. It's a slightly weirder thing being in the UK because we don't have the delineations between the roles is much less. So, a designer, researcher would probably be all the same person, just because there isn't that many practitioners.
I'm looking at this other one called I Hate Service Design. Help. It's I consult on a team that's embedded in a very large company. Company build things with 4 wheels and invented the assembly line. I wonder which one. That one might go too far. I think it's too specific with which company that is, and we don't like playing the gotchas over here. We're not going to do it.
No,
making that call now. I didn't catch that on the first one. But HCI and organizations. Hello, I've joined an online class about HCI. I've only had one class so far. Told to look into how HCI is done in organizations. Let's see here. No. Well, hang on. You check marked that.
Yeah, one. I'm just trying to work out why I check marked it because actually reading it again, I'm like, that's rubbish. Let me alter that.
Okay, I'll give you a pass. Interesting methods page.
I like
pass.
There was one further down. Which one was it? The basically said, "Oh, there we go. Need your professional advice, please. Can you look at this webpage and tell me how to fix it?" Yes, my rates are on my website. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. No kidding.
I'm now tempted just to look at the website just to see just how bad it was. Oh, it's actually 404 not found anyway. So I can tell you that I can give you a real quick answer.
It's bad.
It doesn't exist.
Looking at how good my profile. There's a couple in here about profile for higher education admissions, which I feel like it's been a while since we addressed like from the undergrad perspective, like how to get into grad school. That one might be a good candidate. I feel like we've been focused on like early career, mid career stuff a lot lately, and really haven't got a whole lot of student feedback.
Yeah, definitely put it in the bank.
Yeah, let's put it in the bag. I still feel like we might be able to find a better one here. There's
the one about user flow presentation strategies. And I do most of mine with Figma and PowerPoint. PowerPoint is king as far as I'm concerned. No, that's a nice short answer. Anyone a researcher at a company with a low research budget? Yeah, welcome to my life.
Heat maps. Okay, I finally caught up to heat maps. I'm on October 12. Is where I'm at.
Cool. Okay. That's an interesting. It is an interesting one because it's basically making things. If you're doing website design and stuff, that heat maps are rubbish.
Yeah, I don't like heat maps. I don't like using heat maps. It seems like it has a very specific application where in most cases you're going to get by just fine with other tools. It seems like
that's a different one to what I was reading, because there's another one further down that says heat maps are crap. Where's that one? Oh yeah, there's one on. They actually only came in yesterday. That basically says that heat maps are shit, which is subtle again.
Yeah.
But again, it actually contrasts nicely with that one. Basically, somebody said that heat maps are rubbish and you can't get anything from them.
There's one about how do you approach a product redesign, which is pretty interesting. Have you ever approached a complete redesign of something?
Yes. Well, yeah, quite. I mean, I think I was sort of trying to explain this actually just today to the candidates that probably I would say 78% of our work is going back into where they didn't do it right in the first place, stripping it down and starting up again. But
I've always thought of it as kind of like three different phases, right? You have like the minor cosmetic, easy, low-hanging fruit things, and then you have kind of the slightly deeper fixes that's maybe more workflow related, where you might need to fix a couple things, but from a system perspective, they're a little bit deeper. And then there's the complete redesign, right?
Yeah.
You tack on enough of those level 2s and you get a level 3 redesign.
Yeah, I think it's not one of these things. If you can get a couple of if there's only you might want to do a couple of chunky rewrites if there's a if it's just going to be a couple of them just to get things in a different zone and a better zone. But actually, yeah, sometimes you just got to say let's start again. It's easier.
How about this? I'm not sold on it yet, but I'll put it in the bank.
Okay.
I like putting things in that bank. Save them for a rainy day. User flow strategies. You brought that one up here. Multi-branded websites with good UX. I don't care. Hiring design leadership in a startup. Don't have enough experience with that to answer it. How to deal with a low research budget. That one could be a good one.
Well, yeah, because I mean, fundamentally, because nobody ever, you never have enough research budget, and so you always have to compromise. So,
I mean, I don't think they give a number amount here, but like, how do you tackle things like recruiting, or how do you tackle like what tools you use? And
so it's interesting to say, coming from a huge organization with unlimited budget, I can't. I've worked for some large customers.
I actually like it.
I've never been in an unlimited budget exercise.
I think we're going to take it because I do want to bring up the point of like, I'm gonna say here the fact that you have constraints might make you more creative in how you collect data, and
But no, unlimited budget is almost terrifying. I wouldn't mind it, but it would terrify me from a.
We're gonna grab eye tracking and do nothing with it, and.
Well, this is. I mean, we've just recently set up an eye tracking lab. I said eye tracking lab. It's a PC with an eye tracker on it, in the office, and literally I pulled it together off an eye tracker from eBay, a gaming tracker, hacked the code a bit, and pulled all that stuff together, and it's enough to do what we wanted to do without it being so for like £500, £500, the difference between that and what we've been doing. With a really big, expensive job, it's almost the same. I'm quite pleased with the output, actually.
See, now you stole one of my secrets. There is like you call something a lab to make it seem more impressive than it actually is. I'd never say this about our lab. Our lab is quite sophisticated.
It's got multiple rooms and everything.
Yeah, we have multiple rooms. We have multiple tracks, multiple work threads, multiple whatever you want to call them, simultaneously and asynchronously collaborating within the lab space. Yeah,
and lots serving our needs.
You call it something else. All right, let's see here. So I want to bring these up to the top here. Oh, right, I'm still getting notifications from when we used to do the show at 4:30. Let's see here. Here we go. That's where I wanted to put them.
Yeah.
We're going to say answer some questions from the community about defining innovation. I think that one's going to be the best one of the night, honestly. Let's see. Defining innovation. The tricky boundaries of intellectual property. And using them in your own work. And dealing with low research budgets. And that sound better. And optimizing strategies for dealing with. Barry Williams in the chat. My lab is my home shed office. Do some awesome stuff in there.
Well, Barry's actually a 3D printing genius.
Oh.
So we did a lot of work through the pandemic. We got we basically part of what we called a 3D print farm, where we were printing 3D face masks for the NHS, for the health service. And I kind of got into 3D printers a while ago and have a few, but I'm not very good at it. I can get them set up, and as long as I have to be focused and get them all right and do all that sort of stuff. Anyway, through that I met Barry, and he's really got an attention for detail for it. He can make them sing, and so whenever I was having problems, I was always on messaging him going, Barry, it's broken again. What do I do? and he'd be really, really nice and sort of like, it's okay, bring it up, drop it round, I'll sort it out. And maybe, have you tried it? Doing it in such a nice way of, instead of going, Barry, you're a moron, will you stop breaking it? I was like, have you tried this? And in his he puts up with me quite a lot.
The scariest thing for me, so I have an Ender 3 Pro, and the scariest thing for me was when I hadn't used it in like months, and I tried to get back into it and print out something that I was really excited about. It's sitting right behind me, in fact. It's right there. It's a little droid head. And I got back into it, and it was the tube had clogged at the nozzle, so I was dealing with both a tube clog and a nozzle clog simultaneously, And I would unclog one, and the other one would get more clogged, and then I'd unclog that one, and then the nozzle would get clogged again. And it was just it was one of those things where it's the same experience when you like put together your own PC and you put everything in and you think it's right, and you hit the start button and it doesn't start up.
Yeah.
You're like, where did I go wrong? So
we do a lot of that, and and I'm actually powered up my printers for a bit, because we've been trying to find out a place to have them. So I've been creating workbenches and stuff and all that for them. So we need to get them all set back up again and working, because my son wants to learn how to use them and things. But it's I find it's not an easy thing to teach, especially when I'm not with myself. But just turning around and saying, watch YouTube, which is all I learned from, really. And then, like I said, friends give me advice. Yes, it's
well, because it's not just there's the physical side of things with setting up the equipment and making sure it's all good, and then there's like an art to slicing, and getting the print settings correct, so that way, in harmony, you have the print settings with the fine tuning of the equipment, and they come together to make this 3D object out of additive materials.
It's really clever. I mean, fundamentally, you know, when you can print stuff just in your room and just have. So I've got now I've got a sword up on my wall, as you do. But I sort of 3D printed the bracket to hang the sword, or things like that. And I got some speakers that have sort of, you know, like a DJ set of speakers that you can put outside and things like that. And the bracket inside that held it onto the mount had snapped, had broken. And so I spent, again, this was another mini lockdown project, but half a day designing the bracket in simple Tinkercad, and then was able to 3D print it. And I was like, for basically nothing except about 7 hours of my time, I've been able to recreate this, which I would never have found a spare for, and the speaker would have been permanently broken. So I was very proud of myself. But then
I'm proud of you too. It really is. Yeah, I got one in lockdown as well, and it is just one of those things where you're like, to see the creation that you have designed yourself come out into the world as this like custom made part, right? Like I took measurements in my car, and for like there's a little gap in between like the center media console and the like I don't even know what to call it. Anyway, there's a little gap there, and it's right below where you plug in all your accessories. And I have like an extra accessory thing that allows for, you know, multiple USBs to plug in and both of my dash cams to plug in and all that stuff. And I 3D printed a housing for it that fit just right in there. I think it took me like 4 iterations to get it just right, snug. Everything fits perfect. And it's wonderful. It really is just wonderful.
It's so nice when you can create something that is just nicely bespoke for your needs, but you can look on it with a sense of pride and achievement.
Yes.
No, I quite like doing that. I mean, my problem is that with things like that is I start getting into it as a hobby, and I've now got, I'm trying to work out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 3D printers, kicking about, ranging from very small ones to one it's too big for me, really. But it's we're trying to make them work, but it's I need to get back into it, because I do enjoy it when I do it. It's just they do take up more time and effort than I can be bothered with at times.
Here's some advice. Many confuse a clog with bad speed settings. So if the extruder clicks at the first layer, could be close to the bed, or if it clicks more up in the print, that's due to filament speed settings. Have a look, see where it clicks. Walls are infill, and adjust your machine. That's good advice.
There you go.
Good advice.
So, we could do an entire podcast now on 3D printing.
Exactly. Now, there's plenty of content creators out there that do a much better job than I could ever do.
Yes, I would call it more like bubbling, printing in the dark.
Let's see here. We got 2 minutes before we want to go on here, or rather a minute and a half or so. I'm just taking one last quick look through the notes, making sure we are all good to go. I think we are.
Before we go live, actually, in fact, I'll show you afterwards anyway. But I've got new audio for my podcast. I need to share it with you and see what you think before I go live with it, because I'm in two minds. I think I like it, but I'm not sure.
Ooh, so is that something you would want to share in the post show?
Yes, we'll do it in the post show.
Okay, great. Yeah,
and,
so stick around for a sneak peek.
Yes, and yes, we'll get people's opinion, because yes, we shall see.
Yes, it's exclusive content for our patrons and anyone who wants to tune in for the live show. So perfect. All right. Yes, I think we are good. Just checking. Okay. Yes, we are good to go. I think it's going to be a good show. We'll see.
Have you done your one more thing? Yes, you have.
Yes, I have. Yeah.
See, it sounded like I knew what I was talking about. I'm getting experience at this shizzle.
All right. Well, if you're sticking around, or if you're watching, stick around for just a minute. We'll be right back after this little intro here with the show proper. So stay tuned.
Welcome to Human Factors Cast, your weekly podcast for human factors, psychology, and design.
What's going on, everybody? It is episode 222. That's a lot of twos. We're recording this live on October 14th. If only it was February 2nd, 2022. That would have lined up well. This is Human Factors Cast. I'm your host, Nick Roome, and I'm joined again by Mr. Barry Kirby.
Good morning.
Good morning to you, sir.
I did that because it's actually it's the 15th for me now, isn't it? Yeah, so I'm in the future.
You are again in the future. We will make future jokes all night tonight or tomorrow. We got a great show for you tonight or tomorrow. We'll be talking about transforming exoskeletons and what the whole point of them is. And later, we're going to be answering some of the questions from the community about defining innovation. So some of those tricky boundaries of intellectual property and when you can use them on your own work. And we'll talk about optimizing strategies for dealing with low research budgets. But first, just a couple programming notes and community update. Again, we do have Human Factors Minute available outside of Patreon. We have all 85 episodes up there. It's going to be updating with the same cadence. If Patreon's not your thing, you could go do that on Spotify or Anchor. But if you do want to pay just a penny more, you get access to other things. Patreon commercial will be later. I don't want to talk too much about self-advertisement. It's just a thing that supports the show. Anyway, hey, Ergo X conference. Speaking of exoskeletons, we have been invited to Ergo X. It's a thing that's happening. We will provide you coverage, presumably similar coverage to other conferences that we've covered in the past. And HFES 2021 is coming up, the virtual event anyway. And, we know we pick up like a lot of new listeners from the conferences a lot of times. So if you are new to the show, welcome. If you went to the conference in person, leave us a voicemail. Let us know how it went, and we'll put that in our coverage a little bit later this month. Anyway, I think it's time for us to get into this part of the show we like to call Human Factors News. Yes, this is the part of the show where we search all over the internet to bring you Human Factors News. Barry, what do we have up this week?
So we're talking about a product called Koma 1.5, which can either be a buggy or a powered exoskeleton as required. So we've all been in that position where we've tried to lift something and we've not lifted it correctly or had to carry it over a distance when you can't see the ground. Equally, we've probably seen films where we've seen humans use mechanical exoskeletons to move heavy loads, be it Avatar, Alien, or the most iconic, I guess, exoskeleton has to be Iron Man. But we're moving swiftly from science fiction to science fact. So Koma 1.5 is being developed by Atoun, which is a subsidiary of Panasonic. It's designed to help both mobility and lifting. So it's a dual purpose device by alternately acting as a powered buggy or a two-legged lower body exoskeleton when carrying loads. So the idea behind it is when the user is traveling on smooth level surfaces like, factory floors or warehouse floors, they can just stand up on the rig, hold onto its two control arms, and get carried along by four motorized wheels. It's known as Boogie Mode. And it offers both the smoothest ride and the simplest operation, according to the manufacturers. But should the user need to climb the stairs or over an obstacle, the pushing of a button switches the setup over to a two-legged mode. It's for two front wheels, then retract back to form two powered articulated legs that follow the movements of the user's legs, supporting them as they step up and step down. It's also reportedly capable of autonomously spotting and avoiding obstacles, utilizing integrated cameras and an AI-based computer vision systems. There's currently no word on when the device will reach production, but it does open up some interesting questions for us as human factors practitioners into the design, use cases, and issues surrounding the use of exoskeleton technologies. So what do you think of that then, Nick?
What's the point? So look, when I saw this, when I saw this in my office hours, I thought this was such a cool, if you are listening to this, go watch the video that they have put out on this exoskeleton. It's in our news roundup. We've credited them for sharing the video with us. So go check that out if you haven't already. It's cool to see this thing transform, that goes up to a flight of steps and then it you can walk up the steps. To me, this makes a lot of sense for mobility, where it's an alternative transportation method for those who maybe have poor lower body strength. That makes sense to me. The thing that I'm struggling a little bit is with the lift loads, because in at least from the design, it looks like you have to hold on to these joysticks to control this thing. And so I'm like, where's the lifting at? And maybe it's something that you load onto it. I'm not quite sure, but they cite that it's for lifting. I may be getting too in the weeds here, but that's my general impression. And this makes a lot of sense for mobility, but not so much for lifting. So Barry, what's your impression of the article?
I'd agree. At the end of the day, it's been reported through through the Science magazine, but is effectively, I think it's like a white paper, isn't it? It's promoting a bit of a product, but it's an interesting idea that they've taken two ideas and tried to do the whole pushing them together into one. So exoskeletons, to as you quite rightly say, to help low limb mobility. Is something that's really needed. It's something that's well researched in like some defense, as well as aging populations and all that sort of stuff. Everything from articulated knees up to full lower limbs. Really, really good. And the more we do need to do more work in that area for reasons we'll probably go on to. And then also the need to do lifting stuff, the ability to lift heavy things safely, because people don't lift things properly. Getting back problems because you're lifting boxes when you shouldn't do is also a problem that we need to solve. So what they've done is turn around and say, right, let's try and solve both problems in one machine. And I just don't like it. I think there's, like they say, there's no hands-free control. So how can you do the control it safely and properly when it just doesn't feel very intuitive to me.
There's also a couple things going on here too. It's not only just the control, but there's a lack of this. There's a lack of support. You're just standing up. It's almost like just this mobility scooter, for a lack of a better word, with a climbing mode. I don't know. I cut you off. I'm sorry. You continue.
No. I think you're absolutely right. The other thing that I thought was interesting was this introduction of AI to it as well. So it's going to stop you crashing into things and that type of thing by use of its AI and its cameras. Now, AI is I was in a discussion just today about this, actually, that AI is something that we throw everything at. If you've got a little bit of something, AI has to be on board of everything. And I worry with things like this, that if you've got, if they're going to suddenly stop you from doing what it is that you think you're going to do, with the lack of support above the waist, if you're expecting to go in one direction, it suddenly doesn't do that because the AI has stopped it. Are you then just going to fall over? There's no back. So if you start leaning back on that thing, what's going to happen? You topple over backwards, and then the whole thing lands on top of you. And if you're carrying a weight, then yeah, there's. But I do think what I do like about the story for us is it does bring up a whole heap of human factors issues here that I think there's a lot of production items that that are in play that really need some good HF input.
Yeah, I agree. You have a good segue there, or a good tease for the human factors issues. I do want to get into like just generic background about exoskeletons. I mean, I think we've talked about exoskeletons on the show before, and maybe there's a couple references you can look at for that, and maybe we'll talk about them here in a second. But just generally, exoskeletons, they can be defined in many different ways, and what qualifies as an exoskeleton is fairly broad. I think in the broadest terms, right, it's mechanical support for some of this muscular movement. And if you were to go beyond that, I think you can consider it like wearable technology to either enable, augment, or assist with physical activities. And really, it's kind of the assistance of the physical body moving is ultimately what exoskeletons are. I think there's largely a it's a big tent for what is considered an exoskeleton, and I guess this falls under that big tent when you think about this story. Anything that I missed there in terms of what they are?
I think it is. I mean, I think we generally look at exoskeletons as being force multipliers. So, as you quite rightly say, so using some sort of support to do what you are doing already. So, if you're lifting, it provides you more lifting power. One thing that we possibly don't often think of as a skeleton is when you're providing protection. So, if you've got something, that's you could argue that a spacesuit is a sort of exoskeleton. Because of the nature it protects you from the outside environment. However, I've seen that definition fall under exoskeleton before. I don't necessarily like it because I think it's a protective suit, it's a protective bubble. It's not providing you any more capability as such. So it's an interesting discussion to have because we've sort of seen it argued both ways. But yeah, I think it all depends what you're going to use it for, doesn't it? Because there is quite a wide range of use. Would you agree? Thinking a bit freeball, curveball, that you've got things like telepresence and teleexistence, which is using remote control operation. So you could be using an articulated arm and that type of thing, and it could provide an activity. But if that's remote from you, even by a few feet, and not actually part of the exoskeleton or part of the skeleton nature of what you're doing, I think that falls outside of the scope of exoskeletons. That's remote operation.
I would agree. And I think the difference would be if you had some sort of input device that mapped your movements to the movements of that other thing. That control device would be an exoskeleton because it's augmenting your motion, your movement of your muscular movements with input to another device, right? It's augmenting it. So I would argue that the device itself would be, but not the controlled device. Let's get into what exoskeletons are used for. I kind of alluded to this. We talked about it a couple times on the show. Generally, they're kind of used for industry, healthcare, military. There's a couple other applications, but those are the big three. Yeah. You want to talk about industry? What you can do?
I mean, I think the obvious ones, around warehousing, isn't it? It's taken the stuff that generally you need 2 or 3 people to do: lifting, moving, organizing, and actually using the exoskeleton to basically reduce the amount of manpower you need to do the job. So rather than 2 people lifting a box, if you can have 1 person lifting it because they've got a mechanical application, then brilliant. I think you've talked about this on the podcast in 1 or 2 episodes, such as episode 151 with the industrial robot at CES 2020, or episode 66 with the Ford assembly line, and episode 43, just off the top of my head, looking at loads for carrying large loads. But yeah, I mean, industry I think is a real it's a real fertile ground for this, because it's an area of high stress on the body, lots of manual input, and lots of it's high risk, lots of risk of injury. So the use of mechanical, the exoskeletons to reduce the risk of harm to operators is obviously going to be quite high. What about healthcare?
Yeah, so healthcare is another big one, right? You have surgery, which is an application where maybe it could steady your hand in some of those situations, or you know, prevent you from getting muscle fatigued if you're standing for hours over a patient or something like that. So there's some applications there. We've also talked about exoskeletons in the healthcare domain before on the show. Surprise, surprise. And if you missed any of the references, I will say them all one more time before we start to get into the human factors issues. But we talked about having brain signals drive exoskeletons. That was back episode 205. Then you have rehabilitation efforts using exoskeletons, using artificial intelligence, right? You said AI's on board everything.
Yeah.
That was episode 199. I realized that we had 2 exoskeleton episodes in a 2-month span. It was and then we had exosuits actually helping with stroke victims. That was back at episode 166.
Cool.
Let's get into military applications. What can you do with the military?
Well, the military is one of these things, particularly when you're talking about ground-based troops. But it needn't be just that, because obviously the military does include lots of logistics and that type of thing, which alludes to what we've already talked about with the warehousing and stuff. But fundamentally, you're looking at augmenting the soldier capability. So you could immediately start thinking about, you've got integrated weapon sights and all that sort of stuff, and like that real high tech stuff. But you've got the basic stuff as well. That soldiers are expected to move quickly and carry heavy loads in random terrain. So you've got all of these ideas of supplementing the being able to lower limbs, being able to run, and being able to carry heavier weaponry, and just heavier loads in general. So and again, you've talked about this on a previous episode. I'm pleased we've picked a topic that you don't talk around much. But if you go around to episode 94 and looked at lightening the combat load, that's one of these sort of things where it goes into the sort of technologies that they've been playing with in that way. But it is, in the military, it is something that they're constantly looking at all the time, and knowing particularly with the work we do in the UK, that is still something that is very much ongoing and very pertinent.
Yeah, there's a couple other applications, and yeah, you jest, but like it's really, we do have a lot of resources available for exoskeleton stuff. We must like it, because I always try to favor it, because it's like it's a topic that I wouldn't pick on my own, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's interesting, and then it ends up being and really, we have no excuse since we started letting the patrons choose the news. So you know what, it's off my plate, but we have done a lot of them. So for some of these other applications, I want to get into basic level, augmenting your ability to walk and run. We talked about that episode 139. And then generally, you have the healthcare applications, but I think you could also use exoskeletons just for like everyday use, and especially with something like providing mobility to an aging population, right? It's not necessarily a healthcare concern. They're just aging, and so you give them an exosuit or exoskeleton, or some sort of augmentation to help with muscle fatigue, or allow them to go further faster without expending as much energy. Yeah. So there are other applications here. Okay, for everybody listening, get out your pen and paper. I'm going to read off all these episodes for you. And I will start with one that I didn't mention on this list, and that is our coverage of Ergo X from 2018. We actually sat down and talked with Chris Reed and Dave Rempel about Ergo X, and that's a good place to start. Ergo X was a pretty cool conference, and it was really awesome to sit down and like have everybody in their dorky exoskeleton sitting in this conference. And it was I say dorky endearingly, because it was an awesome conference, and I can't wait to go back this year. I'm really excited they invited us back. So start with there, and then we have I guess we'll start with industry, right? You have Lowe's carrying for large loads in their warehouses. That was episode 43. You have Ford assembly line workers. That's episode 66. You have industrial robots being presented at CES 2020 that allow you to multiply forces of carrying ability. That was episode 151. Then let's get into the healthcare domain. You have using brain signals to drive those exoskeletons. That was back in episode 205. Blake and Elise had a great discussion on that while I was out. You had rehabilitation using artificial intelligence. That was episode 199. And then exosuits helping stroke victims, episode 166. Then we go to military, and we had an episode on lightning combat load. That was episode 94? Geez, 94. Oh, we've been doing this a long time. And then, of course, augmenting the ability to walk and run. That was episode 139. All right. So we've talked a lot about the applications. We talked a little bit about the article. Let's get into some of the human factors issues because it's really important, right? You want to go over like the first maybe 4 or 5 of these?
Yeah, I mean, just sort of refresh what you said about having so many episodes on this. Yes, there is quite a lot, but there's still so much to do with HF because they're so new and there's so many different things. So the first thing, the big things that hit me straight away is around latency and control. It's got to be, the input signals from however you're inputting it. I'm not in the example that we've got is through joysticks and things. But if you're particularly, when you're doing sensors off muscles and things like that, if you don't have a good speed of latency, a high speed latency, then you're not going to be able to react in the way that you're going to need to. You maybe do normal movements, but when you're going to, we talked about abnormal or maybe edge cases where you might start falling or you might drop something or something might start to balance off balance or something like that. You need to be able to have the right have really fast latency to or a really like a short latency to make sure that you can do that. Then that leads you into control. How do we actually control these things? Are they, we've got things like Elon Musk trying to do the brain HCI with us at the moment, which brain HCI is a really fascinating topic. I'm not entirely sure I want Elon Musk in my head, but the idea about you have, your thought control to control the exoskeleton, or do you does it go off muscles, or do you have some sort of joystick control? Them two things, I think, if we can hit them right, then almost everything else falls into place. But then the last two things I'll mention is around the limits, because we as humans have a range of movement. If the exoskeletons don't have the same range of movement, or at least similar, then are you actually restricting people? And how do we make sure that people, respect them limits? And the limits are either on range of movement or just on the lifting capability. What happens if you can lift 200 kilograms with this thing, and you accidentally lift 205 and it breaks? What happens at that point? How does it have graceful degradation and things like that? So yeah, they're my first 4 big hitters.
Yeah, I'm going to go just a little bit off script here. I know we have this list of things that we want to discuss, but we do record these live, and sometimes we get comments that are just too good to ignore. So there's one from Barry W. in the chat here. Not this Barry that I'm talking to, but another Barry. He says, so basically I depend on a mobility scooter because I have failing hips. I hate the looks people give because I use that thing. So in the future, if exoskeletons could be used for lower limbs, but one that's not too noticeable, that would be amazing. And I want to take the opportunity to talk about the human factors issues associated with that, because that is barriers to acceptance. And that's a huge human factors issue when it comes to exoskeletons. That's something that, things like ease of use, right? So being able to put it on, that's going to be a huge factor in whether or not somebody's actually able to use one, right? And then you have the number of people around you using exoskeletons. There's this whole social pressure, right? And I think this is what Barry's getting at here, where if if it was subtle, if people didn't necessarily realize that you had an exoskeleton on, or it was so subtle that it, didn't feel awkward or clunky to use, you might be more likely to use it. And then you also have things like performance. How does it really impact your ability to do things, right? Is the exoskeleton going to improve the way in which you are either doing your job if you're in a in a warehouse, or is it going to actually allow you to move faster, exerting less energy? So those are really important pieces of information when it comes to barriers and acceptance. And I did want to just circle back to one of the things that you were saying, Barry. Now I'm talking to you, Barry, the control issue, right? And I think there's one thing that I would like to add to that is kind of the cognitive load associated with control. The more passive you can make that control to work with the body, the less cognitive load that you have to deal with in order to make the exoskeleton do the thing that you want it to do. Do you want to talk a little bit about what happens when it fails?
Yeah, I get all the best ones. No, but to me, it's things like this that are absolutely key, because when things are working fine, then it's brilliant, isn't it? But rarely do things work exactly as you want. So we all automatically assume that things like an exoskeleton, use the lower limb example, is going to be fine working on flat land. But what happens? I mean, me and the other Barry, we both live in Wales, which is known for being very, very hilly. And so will it work walking up a hill? And if you're in the situation where you take it, so it might not be out of limits, but you work it in such a way that it does go out of limits. What happens when you fall over or you fail? But then that leads you on to, well, what happens when it breaks down? Just like having your car or your bike or whatever, you get mechanical failure. What happens if you're like halfway up a flight of stairs or something like that, and either the battery gives out or a mechanical failure happens, and you're sort of stuck halfway up? What's them sort of recovery modes, and how easy would that be to work? And so, yeah, I think there's loads of things around like that, which will get solved in time. But I think with more of a human factors approach really early on, like now, a lot of this can come to the fore, and it'd be fairly simple to solve, you'd like to think. But I don't see, I mean, with the example we've got in the article at the moment, I don't see that is immediately obvious.
I think the article kind of shows me that they're thinking about it, right? They understand that exoskeletons have to adapt to various modes. And so, maybe there is a hill mode in the future that that can help with that type of thing. And yeah, you're absolutely right though. Like the design of what happens when it fails is going to be critical, because where is the battery? Is it somewhere easily accessible, or is it on your back where you can't reach it? Does the exoskeleton lock in place for heavy loads while you're carrying a heavy load, or do you are you forced to drop it, which could be very costly to somebody or to you if it falls on you and it's not discharged in the correct way, right? So there's really important human factors issues that we have to think about. I do want to talk about sort of these diminishing returns associated with exoskeletons, right? We talk a lot about augmenting muscles for better performance. And it might actually be the case that you design an exoskeleton for one part of the body, and it might affect the way your whole body works. And it might not necessarily be an improvement if you are straining another piece of your body at the, I guess, reduced is not a word, reduced effort, or I guess reduced fatigue in the other part, right? So the way the body works holistically is really important. The benefits to that specific body part or region that it's trying to solve might be completely negated by its effect on another region. So that's just something I wanted to bring up. Do you have any other things that you want to talk about here, human factors issues wise?
Yeah, well, the other thing I think for me is around training, because you're going to want this thing to be used by everybody. And if you're going to take the approach that we have to technology now, you don't have to have a user manual, do you? You want to be able to strap the thing on and away you go. So how intuitive, it goes back to what you were saying earlier around the control, about just how intuitive is it going to be. So would you be able to just get into it, power it on, and start walking with it, and it do everything it needs to do, but also it look after you in a If it does start failing, it tells you exactly what's going on and things like that. Or are you going to have to go and take like a degree course just to be able to go and use your new exoskeleton trousers? So I think there's a whole bunch of stuff around that, around reducing the training need as much as practicable, so it's intuitive for use. And then combine that with the safety stuff we've kind of touched on, because there's not only the its operation, but fundamentally you're talking about mechanical parts, and so the ability for, if you've got your hands in the wrong place at the wrong time, when the knee bends, and you suddenly then you now need an exo hand because you just crushed it in your exo leg. So yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff on that to be concerned about, but yeah, I think getting the right sort of HF people involved, we could solve a lot of that.
Yeah, speaking of getting the right human factors people involved, I know when we did attend Ergo X back in 2018, there was active development starting on industry standards for exoskeletons, and I truthfully haven't checked in on that standardization effort since 2018, since we've been there. But there are human factors professionals that are thinking about this in a way that's going to benefit the entire industry. And so, yeah, we got some smart people working on it, and looking forward to the future to see what that holds. Let's get back to the article. I mean, we talked a lot about the human factors issues. We talked about the background on exoskeletons. Is there anything else about this article that you want to bring up before we get out of here?
I think I was probably a bit down on it to begin with, but actually you raised the point about it that transforming motion that it's trying to do. It's trying to solve two issues with one solution, and I think that probably should be applauded for at least them putting it out there and trying to do stuff. I still think it's got a way to go, but it's an interesting next step.
I agree. I would offer the same sentiment. I think I first was excited when I saw this story, and then I thought critically about it, and then I thought critically again, and was like, okay, no, this is an active effort trying to solve problems, and again, we applaud that. So, one thing I didn't do was social thoughts, and I meant to do this throughout, but I don't think we got any, so that's okay. I will just say we did ask a social thoughts to see if anyone had used an exoskeleton, and 100% has been no. And so that's kind of crazy that I've never used an exoskeleton myself. Now that I think about it, have you?
I've not directly used one, but I've had one. I've stood next to one whilst it's being used.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's where we're at for the social thoughts. And again, just huge thank you to our patrons this week for selecting our topic. Thank you to our friends over at New Atlas for our news story this week. If you want to follow along, join me for office hours on Mondays, where I find these news stories. We do post the links to the original articles as we find them. And you can always join us in our Slack or Discord for more discussion on these stories. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back to see what's going on in the human factors community right after this.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our weekly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and Human Factors Minute, a Patreon-only weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember, it depends.
Huge thank you, as always, to our patrons, and especially our honorary Human Factors Cast staff patrons like Michelle Tripp. Patrons like you keep the show running. Thank you all so much for your continued support. If you want to become a patron, we are always doing some new interesting things over there. Like I said, I don't know if I plugged the lab this week, but we've always got some fun things churning in the lab, and our Patreon subscribers, our patrons, are always kind of first in the know to see what's going on. We do release some bonus content over there. So if that's something that you're interested in, giving back to the show, you can do that. We have a whole separate podcast for you over there. New rewards, fresh look, always updating, all that stuff. Anyway, we're close to some of our goals, so consider it. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, I think it's time we get into this next part of the show we like to call
It came from. It came from.
Yes, this week it is Reddit. This is the part of the show where we search all over the internet to bring you topics the community's talking about. If you find these answers useful, give us a like wherever you're at. Help other people find this content. We have 3 of them tonight, and I'm going to start with this first one here. This one's from the user experience subreddit. This is by Susie XO. This is an interviewer stated they needed innovation. I had a job interview for a UX designer at a fintech company. The interviewer stated that they are looking for high innovation, and he wants users to be amazed by the innovation. He then stated it is a chaotic company, and I'll have to figure things out by myself. He asked, how do you know if users will find the product easy to use? I said, there are several ways. First, through research and user testing. Second, if there's limited time, I can do some heuristic evaluation and look at industry leaders like Google. He then said, I don't want to hire senior designers because I don't want standard designs like Google. I want something different and new. He is not a designer, so I'm not sure if what he's saying makes sense from a designer perspective. The company is to help users pay their rent, so I think the main goal should be to make it easy and accessible to use. Barry, there's a lot going on here. I want to talk about innovation first, and then maybe we can get into expectations about what your job role is. So what is innovation to you?
Well, this always makes me laugh in a slightly cynical way because innovation is such a buzzword at the moment. Everybody wants innovation. Not only does everybody want innovation, but everybody innovates. And that's just not true. So for me, innovation is actually not just coming up with ideas out of thin air, but actually the definition I tend to use is the transfer of an implementation from one domain where it's used to another domain where it's not used. Because generally, nothing is new under the sun. Things have generally been done, either done or thought of before. You've really get back to that first thought. So when people say about they want an innovative solution. Okay, they want something they haven't seen before. They want something that's fine. So go and look in other domains. Go and pull that sort of stuff across. And then there's the other one around. What are we thinking outside the box? Well, that just means you haven't worked out what box you're in, because you're actually just in a bigger box. And for me, it's really important to understand your boundaries, which actually kind of gets to what this question is about. I like the questions that were posed, right? So do I have a lot of time to do this? Do I have a little amount of time to get this sort of research? Because there's different approaches you can take, which seems really good. But then to have that, well, I don't want to do what everybody else is doing. Okay, but depends how much money you want to throw at it, I guess. So
we'll talk about budget later.
Yes, we will. But, what does innovation mean to you?
Look, innovation to me is a lot what you said. I think there's a way to think about innovation where you are not as disruptive as sort of these startup industries, right? They are startups because they are disrupting an industry, and it takes a lot to get to that point. Now, to me, innovation is not, like you said, it's taking from other domains and applying it to the domain you're in. But I think beyond that, it's also improving on the margins of what you're already doing. And I think the marginal gains across sort of what you're doing, right? You might improve a process slightly over here and then sort of improve a process slightly over there. But together, they may bring up the process as a whole, right? And so it's not just thinking about sort of these big sweeping changes. It's how can you make miniature changes across many different things for this constant improvement that always improves the way that you do things. It always improves the procedures that you're implementing. It's improving the designs because some other industry is doing it well, right? So these margins, that's what I think. And then there's the discussion about expectations from somebody who's outside of your domain. This is from a design perspective, but this happens also in human factors where people don't necessarily understand what we do and they have this idea in their head that they want to happen. And it's a lot about pushing back and say, my role is to do X. In human factors, it's to improve products, processes, procedures, services, things for humans. That's our role broadly. For a designer, it might be to make something pretty, and I don't want to be degrading there, but like, their job is to make something that's not only usable but beautiful, and there's a lot of crossover. Anyway, the point is, you push back and tell them what your job is. Maybe not in the interview, but once you get hired.
Yeah, it is one of these things, though, isn't it? It's the how, again, because this is an interview. It does give you a real good insight into what it is that you're potentially going to do, and an interview very much, I still think, is a two-way process. That not only you want, yes, it's always so tempting to think that, yes, I need to get this job, I need to get the offer, but there's going to be times where you just look at it and go, actually, what the vibes that I'm getting from the interviewer or panel of interviewers just means it's not somewhere I want to be. And if they're asking you stupid questions, or what you consider to be stupid questions, or questions that are not relevant, then what does that tell you about what it is that you're going into? It might just be that you just getting interviewed by HR, which is fine. You can't expect them to have a technical knowledge, but you've got to be able to take your own view on that, about if it's somewhere you want to be. But yeah, as you say, if they're, as long as you lay out, and I think it's a bit of a problem that we sometimes have, because we want to please everybody. You want to, if somebody says, and it sort of does lead into imposter syndrome to a certain extent, because as soon as somebody says, well, I want to be like this, you start questioning yourself, going, oh, should I be delivering that? Oh, have I got it wrong in myself? Then you give yourself a shake, and no, of course, no, I know what I'm talking about. Lay it on the line, and say, well, you in this instance, you can either have lots of really original design and development. That's going to take time. It's going to cost money, etc., etc. Or if you want something quick and dirty, then we'll go to, we'll take on what is good practice. If you consider Google to be good practice, or whoever you take as your lead, use what they've done. Because chances are they're quite successful. I've heard of Google. I think they kind of know a little bit about what they're doing. Therefore, it's probably not a bad lead to take. If you want
to borrow and steal.
Yeah. It's kept me going for a long time.
Yeah, same here. All right, let's talk about intellectual property. So this next one here is also from the user experience subreddit. This is from Neon Knights. They write, using my company's design language in a personal project. Over the past 2.5 years, I've refined my company's design language to the point where I find it incredibly intuitive to design with. I'm a co-founder of the company, but it's owned by a large conglomerate. I'm working on a personal project, and I've started designing it using my company's design language because it was intuitive. I'm now struggling whether this is inappropriate to be publishing something that has a similar look to your company. I asked my CEO. He said it probably wasn't a big deal, but I'm skeptical. I've been trying for the past 2 days to redesign it with a different design language, but none of them strike me as much as my company's. Do you think it's fine if I use the design language and maybe change a couple things, typography, colors, etc.? So this is a more important question about intellectual property. What's yours? What's the company's? And Barry, I'm really curious to get your thoughts on this one.
It's simple. Don't do it. And a fundamental thing, and there's a couple of reasons for this. So yes, you can take something that works intuitively for you. You can probably put in a couple of changes, as long as if they're significant and allows you to be different to what it is that they've got. But if you're the co-founder in the company but you don't own it, then no matter you opening yourself up to the owning company, whoever owns it, coming to you and saying, actually, you just ripped that straight off us. We own that. We own this this design this design language, and you've used that for your product. Therefore, we own. We're going to sue you for it. It could even get even worse than that, because if you produce something quite innovative, it's your own thing, and you try and go to market with it, then as your own personal project, because you've used their design language, then they could argue that they now own your IP. So it's also worth checking your own contract around that, because sometimes companies do write clauses in there around that. As another example of this, so it's not using design language, but I've known of some companies, if you talk about extracurricular activities on their email systems, and you talk about potentially a new new product or something like that you're developing elsewhere, they actually have legitimate claim to your IP because you've used their system to talk about it, and so legally they sometimes can go in and at least give you a hard time over it. I've known of one situation where they've actually taken a product that somebody's produced in their own time, but they spoke about it on a company email system to make that work. So in short, the level of risk I think you've got is quite high. If there's something that you want to actually, even if it's a personal project that you're just doing something for home, or that type of thing, just do your own thing. It's so much easier.
Yeah, it's pretty cut and dry when you have a situation where it is a visible thing, right? Especially in design, you don't want to do that because you can clearly tie it back to another company's thing.
Yeah.
It gets a little bit more tricky when you're talking about IP that's more process based or procedure based. I would still advocate that you don't do it, and in fact, there are, I think it's best practice here, at least in the States, where yes, the company owns everything you do on their laptop, and so if you do have any any original ideas, I would say don't document it on that laptop, document it on your own laptop. Work on it away from the company computer, because that can come back and bite you. They do technically own that, and so as for taking processes, procedures from one company to another, this is a difficult question because you have a lot of things that are standard best practice. Like if I did a heuristic evaluation at one company and I did it at another company, and it was the same methodology, but the methodology was out there in the literature, who owns that IP? Well, technically it's the person who did the research on it. And if it is an industry best practice, then you have the shared collective best interest to ensure that everyone is using that methodology, so that way products are the best they can be. And so it gets a little bit more, and I don't have the answers. To be clear, but it does get a little bit more dicey when you're talking about proprietary processes, procedures. But things like code and things like designs, those are easy to trace back. So just don't do it.
Yes, just back off.
All right, we got one more here. Anyone a researcher at a company with low research budget? How detrimental is it? This is by Peanut Butter Person from the User Experience subreddit. Hey everyone, does anyone work as a user experience researcher at an organization with low to little research budget? I'm debating if I should take a new UX researcher job at a small/mid-sized company with very small research budget. How does recruiting happen? Coming from a huge organization with unlimited budget, it gets me kind of nervous. Would you rely mostly on customers for user sessions as opposed to external? I'd love to hear your experiences. Would this be a deal breaker for you? I imagine it may slow things down quite a bit due to longer times of recruiting and getting the right participants. How do you deal with a situation where you have a limited budget? Have you ever experienced a situation with a limited budget, Barry?
Well, like every day of the week. This is day normal for me. At the end of the day, I mean, I've never been in a situation with a company with an unlimited budget. I mean, that almost scares me more, because where are your boundaries? I think with any research budget, you always have to scope it to some level, and you're always going to scope it to some sort of time, cost, quality type issue, and particularly with the UX research going for a small mid-sized company with a small research budget. So you just got to tailor your cloth accordingly. You might be able to do less engagement, but you can do more novel engagement. You maybe can't utilize the big whiz bang, really expensive tools, the really expensive eye trackers, all that sort of stuff to be able to do what you're doing. But there are cheaper solutions out there that you can be slightly more innovative in your solutions to hook back to the other one. So I think for me, I like the challenge. I like the challenge of people coming up with, a very specific budget, but wanting the world. And you can sort of sit there and say, well, actually, I can't deliver the world, but I can deliver a significant chunk of it using these techniques. So part of me wants the challenge of an unlimited budget. I don't know what I could do with an unlimited budget. That'd be amazing. What about you?
Yeah. So budget is interesting because there's, I want to tackle this from two fronts, right? The budget is interesting because on some projects you have that built into the budget, and you just have to consider how much you have at your disposal. And most of the time, it kind of you have an idea of the tools that you've used. You know roughly what fits into that mold. But if you're coming from a situation where you had an unlimited budget and nothing's off limits, then that's a little bit different because now you have to pare it down. However, I will echo that if you get into that situation, some of those constraints do drive innovation, and they do sort of force you to look into different solutions that you might not otherwise. And so having those constraints actually might help you. And really, when it comes down to it, I don't know how you feel about this, but really all you need is some sort of spreadsheet software and some sort of note-taking software. If that, pen and paper can do just fine. Some way to create a form for people to fill in information is nice to have, but you can do your job with kind of the bare minimum. And if you are coming and approaching problems from that perspective where everything else is a nice to have, then you can do quite a bit with just a small budget. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, completely agree.
All right. Well, I think it's that time of the show. It needs no introduction. It is just one more thing. Barry, what's your one more thing for this week?
So, actually, as an update from your one more thing last week, I've watched Squid Game all the way through now. So I'm now in the zone. I get it. But my proper one more thing this week, over the past few weeks, we've had fuel droughts in the UK. So we haven't had the supplies getting to the fuel to the petrol stations. And so this has led me to now start really considering the purchase of an EV, an electric vehicle. And it's been a really interesting thought because I'm the sort of person, I've never bought a new car before. I always buy sort of secondhand used cars. And so this has been an education, just the sort of things that you can go and get up to. And I guess the biggest insight for me was going to the local garage. They had an unveiling of a new EV, and they don't treat you differently when you're going to look at a new car as opposed to a second-hand car. The customer experience was very different. So maybe because you're going to spend a lot more bucks with them. But going to see this new EV was really nice. It's interesting seeing how the technology is moving on so quickly. Because we'd sort of looked at the Teslas and things like this. This was a Kia that we looked at, and just the more integration back into almost what a car should look like, but also making use of the gadgets. I just think it's now seeing it hands on, and actually it's very different evaluating EVs from a distance. We've talked about Teslas, we've talked about the automation technologies and things, but now seeing them quite up close with the potential of getting my own hands on one, it's getting quite exciting.
Now, are you going to go for like all the bells and whistles that allow you for some self-driving capabilities or anything like that?
I've been thinking about it, but I don't know whether it's a bit like us having cruise control in the UK, because we don't have quite the same long open roads that you have in the States to actually truly make use of cruise control. In fact, I probably use cruise control more to make sure I don't speed in speed limited areas more than anything else. So whilst we do, obviously we've got motorways and stuff like that, so you could use them. I was talking to an EV user last Saturday, who they use it quite a lot when they're on the motorways, and they quite liked it. So part of me is quite tempted, just purely because I mean, as you know, I'm an absolute gadget geek, so I would absolutely love to have it. But it's one of these things: would you use it for maybe the first few weeks and then actually just not bother after that? You just crack on. But I'd like to have the opportunity.
Well, who knows? If we get a couple more patrons, we might.
Well, that's true. I mean,
It's for the show, right? It's for the show.
I was going to say the Human Factors Cast branded Tesla just waiting in the drive.
Oh man. Well, I want to talk about my one more thing because it's a culture shock. Yeah, I guess that's the best way I can put it. So I just found out that, well, I didn't just find this out. I found this out a couple weeks ago, but I am now using a Macintosh, a MacBook Pro for full-time work. And this is an adjustment for me. And I have found that coming from one operating system where you know all the intricacies, right? I'm talking Windows here, but I know my way around Windows. And when I haven't opened up a Mac since 2016, and before then it wasn't since the Macs of the 90s where you had the big fat colorful back into them, right? That's going to offend somebody. Anyway, I think there's a lot that Mac does right for the people that use their products. And to me, coming from a different product family, it's a hard learning curve. There's a lot of things that I fixed in the first week that I found myself going, this shouldn't operate this way. And I said, well, wait, no, the people who use this, it's this like conflict in my head. It's the people that use this understand it this way, and I don't understand it this way. So maybe it's just me. But then I'm like, but wait, and I've caught myself in these loops. And I've also spent so much time fixing the things to the way I feel like they should be operating. And it's so weird because I'll be doing something, some long string of tasks, and then all of a sudden I will hit one of these snags that's OS related and spend another half an hour trying to figure out how to fix it or make it the way I expect it to go. And then I'll forget the task that I was initially doing. And that break in workflow is so detrimental. I will get used to it. It will be fine. But I'm just saying there's some growing pains. It's struggling, culture clash, whatever you want to call it. It's a little rough.
I keep on getting quite a few people saying, "Oh, you should use a Mac. Should use a Mac." I'm similar vein. I've always used PCs. I've flirted with some Macs in the past, and particularly the what's the boxes you can get that have got the Intel processor, the Mac Minis. So we've had a couple of them just to do some video processing and stuff. But I like them as well because you can use a two button mouse on them. But yeah, I feel sorry for you having to go down the route. And like I said, I'm sure it'll be fine in time, but I'd think I'd find the learning curve very frustrating.
Oh, yeah, it is very frustrating. Anyway, that's going to be it for today. If you like this episode, we invite you to check out any one of the many episodes on exoskeletons I've referenced through tonight's episode. We have a lot of them. Comment wherever you're listening with what you think of the story this week. For more in-depth discussion, you can always join us on our Slack or Discord communities. You can visit our official website, sign up for our newsletter to stay up to date with all the latest Human Factors news. If you like what you hear and you want to support the show, there's a couple things you can do. 1, leave us a 5-star review. That is free for you to do. You can do that right now. 2, tell your friends about us. Word of mouth is how we grow. Really helps the show. 3, if you want to give Barry a Tesla with autopilot on it, consider supporting us on Patreon. And as always, links to all of our socials and our website are in the description of this episode. I want to thank Mr. Barry Kirby for being on the show today. Again, where can our listeners go and find you if they want to talk about exoskeletons?
On Twitter, you can find me at Baz_K, and you can also find me on the 1202 Human Factors podcast, which if you just go on any social media for hashtag 1202 podcast, you'll find me there.
As for me, I've been your host, Nick Roome. You can find me streaming on Twitch every Monday evening from 4 to 5 Pacific for office hours and across social media at Nick_Roome. Thanks again for tuning into Human Factors Cast. Until next time, it depends. Stick around with us if you are watching. We're going to do a quick post show here. I got to get the, let's see, where's the, well, first off, let's get the music going. And then we'll do the post show thing. was a really solid show. And thank you, Barry, for hanging out with us.
He's around for the entire show.
For the entire thing. Yeah.
He won't know now that we also do a post show, so I'm hoping he doesn't go off too early. It is very late for him, though, to be fair. Yeah, no, fair play. And actually, he made the point there actually that I was going to make as well, that around it's the Android versus Apple versus Android thing as well.
Yeah, I am a PC Android user.
Oh, see, I'm a PC Apple user.
Oh, really?
Which is a weird. I like the, not so much for me because but because we use them. I went through a spell of buying them for all of my team, and some are more technologically literate than others. And so actually, I like Apple because it's solid. The user interface for the phones is, you can't really mess it up. It's really intuitive. But I personally prefer the Android one because you can do more with it. Your widgets and things like that. But it's like a load of things that the Apple just have to do their own thing, don't they?
They do.
They don't like to conform.
Yeah, it's both annoying and understandable. I guess, they think of themselves as trendsetters, and they are.
Yeah, well, and they have.
Yeah, absolutely. There's things that Google and Microsoft have stolen from them, and so I think there's always that argument of Apple did it first. Like iPhone was revolutionary. That was the first big, big screen phone in your pocket, right? Touch screen, all that stuff. That was all brand new. That was them. So there's merit to it, right? I get it. I just am a Android PC user, and I'm really excited. I can't wait to make this my one more thing. Whenever Windows 11 adds the capability to do Android apps through Windows 11,
I didn't know that was coming.
That's coming
quite cool.
Natively, without anything like BlueStacks or anything like that. So it'll be interesting to see how they perform. And
yeah, I mean, because also that'll help with the development as well. Actually,
it absolutely will.
Life a bit easier in that respect as well. But
I don't know if Apple used iPhone or iPhone used Samsung's screen. I think that sounds.
Yes, I think they did. I was watching TikTok the other day that sort of highlighted that they do. So, but also because iPhones also so Macs now you also use Intel processors as well, don't they? So, it's all just everywhere.
Yeah, everyone's using everything. It doesn't matter. Use what you like. That's what I'm. That's kind of the camp that Android and PC are right for me, but use whatever's right for you because ultimately.
Anyway, I need your opinion.
Oh yes, please share. Hang on, I will kill the music here.
Right, if this works properly, right, you should probably be familiar with what my old one was, which if this works right, should be this.
Welcome to 1202.
So
the Human Factors
you're aware
podcast,
of that. So quite
the podcast.
It is quite American because it's an American done, but it's very beat. Okay,
in between.
So let's switch that off. This is the new one, and go.
Welcome to 1202, the Human Factors Podcast, the podcast that covers all things about humans, technology, and particularly the bit in between.
That's a banger. That's great.
You like that? That's good.
I do. Hey, play it one more time.
Welcome to 1202, the Human Factors Podcast, the podcast that covers all things about humans, technology, and particularly the bit in between.
Yeah, my one, I guess, I wouldn't even call it a criticism. It's just a little distracting. Is the first two, the first two words, "welcome to," kind of sounds sing-songy to me, almost like they're singing along to the track.
Yeah,
and I was about to be like, oh, did he develop a full on track to this where it's like, sung and everything, singing intro?
No, not quite. But to be fair, again, it was another one of my purchases through the 5 gig platform. And she's done an absolute sterling job. So I've got outros as well as she's redone all the adverts for me. So it's all in the same sort of line. So I think for the next interview, which I think I'm doing on Monday, if I remember what my calendar looks like, then we're going to use these ones and go with it. And because we've also now, I'm going to move my podcast from the Barry Kirby website. We've now got the 1202 podcast website in its own right.
Ooh, are you? What service are you using for that? Are you using anything fancy or
WordPress?
Okay.
So we use WordPress with the so I use Blueberry as the podcast host.
Okay. If you want an affiliate link for Podpage, if you're interested in that, I can give you like a little demo and everything. It's what we use for ours, and we really are happy with it. It's got a lot of bells and whistles on it that that are built exclusively for podcasting, and it's just awesome. So if that's something you're interested in, I'm happy to do like a little demo for you.
And so I might do what I'm trying to do at the moment is, so I've got a as I've got the WordPress on it, and I've got a theme on it, which is supposed to be a podcasting theme, but so more specific than the one I had. So I'm playing with that at the moment to see if it works and everything. So that's what I've been doing sort of this afternoon, this evening, which is why I was late to do the show notes and stuff. Because I'm just back into, I quite like getting stuck into the nuts and bolts of some. So it's not proper programming, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
or designy bits.
It's
so
like
that's
the admin stuff.
Yeah, so getting stuck into that, and then so we'll be playing around with that, and we'll see how that looks. So next week, I'll give you a preview of how that's coming along, and you can see what you think.
Yeah, hang on, we're in the post show, so I can show you. We're not on the show, so I can share my screen. Let me show you what Podpage looks like behind the scenes. I'm not selling right now. I'm just it's a product that I appreciate and want others to know about because it has made our transition to the website tremendously easy. And let's see here, Podpage dashboard. Yeah, so on Podpage here, let me share my screen with you so you can see this. And for everyone watching live, for everyone listening on the Patreon, I'll try my best to describe what's going on here. But here's my screen. So with Podpage, you log in, and basically what they do is they ask you, hey, what's your domain?
I'll just point out I can see your screen here.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. They ask you, what's your domain? So it'd be 1202.com or whatever you have, right? 1202 thehumanfactorspodcast.com, whatever it is. And then they ask you for your URL, and they populate everything else. They ask you for, your theme. Like, how do you want to set up your website? So, like, I think you'd come in here and you'd go to Page Designer.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. And then you say, okay, well, what's the theme that you want to use? And you can customize it where you are. Where's the theme and stuff? I do. Oh yeah, here you go. Colors, fonts, buttons. It's all there. I guess you start at the top, and that's the way they've built it, right? So you select your colors, you select your fonts, you select your button shape, and then you go back to the page list, and then you select your header, sidebar, footer. In your template, I guess it's not theme, it's template, right? And they have all these templates that you can pick and choose from, and it gives you like some freedom with what you want it to look like, right? Like, do you want your latest episode up there? Or do you want just a little bit about your show up there? We have this one right now. Or actually, I think we have one down here somewhere. I think we're Carbon. But anyway, you have some flexibility here, and you can turn on certain aspects of it. It'll give you a live preview of what that actually looks like with the data from your website. That's the one that we have. We have Crystal. And it's pretty cool. So if I choose one of these, it would change the entire website right now, and I could change it right back.
Oh, that looks good. So do you host presumably you don't host the audio files on there as well? You post them separately?
No, we just post them to SoundCloud, and it imports everything through the RSS. Right.
Yeah, so you put it on SoundCloud, and it brings it in. Yeah, so I can do that the same way.
Yep, I do want to change our SoundCloud though, ultimately, because it's not very good for stats and understanding our listenership. So I do want to change that. But yeah, this is great. I mean, you can link up videos to it. I know you don't really do videos for 1202, but
we might
you can.
I'm
You can
tempted to have it.
highlight certain episodes and be, like, hey, this is a great episode. You should check it out. The user UXPA recap, the NEC recap. And it's like I said, it's very intuitive, very easy to use. If you, like I said, if you want an affiliate link, you let me know.
Send me an affiliate link, because I think that could be quite a lot less hassle than what I'm trying to do at the moment.
Dude, it's so powerful. It's so easy to use. And like, you just come in and like, what do you want your episode pages to look like? Do you want it to be, do you want to include all this stuff in it? Maybe not. There's a pro version, but then it's like, you can even specify this thing called a signature, which is what we use, right? So this is everything south of, in the show notes, if you think about it came from.
Oh yeah.
Everything south of it came from. We have, follow me, follow Blake, join us on Discord or Slack. So if anything changes, we just change it once on here, and it updates across the entire website. We don't have to worry about it.
Clever.
It's actually.
If you could throw me a link to that would be awesome.
Yeah. Actually, if you go to here, I'll send it to you, but I have it on spelled it wrong. What did I do? Hume factors. I have the link for you. And if anyone watching or listening is interested, I do have it available for you. Resources is where you want to go, and then you go to website built by Pod page, and that there is the affiliate link.
Oh, cool. So, I can nail
that for you.
Cool. Yeah, so I've put in, just above that, I put in where my design so far. So if you wanted to click on that,
I will. Oh no. That affiliate link is broken. Oh no, I gotta fix that. I will fix that, and I will get you the proper affiliate link.
There it is.
Yeah. Let me click on yours though and see what's going on with yours.
It is live, so anybody can see it. So that's absolutely fine.
It's 1202podcast.com. Oh, look at that.
So it's obviously none of the episodes are transferred yet, because I haven't transferred the RSS feed. And why doesn't my host come up? I should have come up in the post link there, so that isn't working either. But yeah, this is 2-3 hours worth of effort this afternoon.
Okay.
It's getting there slowly. It took me ages just to work out how to put my logo in the top left corner. But it's sort of getting there.
Yeah.
I needed night. As much as she's quite pretty there, she's got nothing. Some people say, no, you should just leave that there because it looks like a proper thing. But I was like, but it doesn't. It's not actually personal to us, so I don't like doing that sort of.
Yeah, you should try your best to recreate it. Where you're like, I don't know, reading a book in front of you. Hang on, I'm going to try to recreate it right now. If you want, you can use me on that. And so let's see here.
Put you
facing. Wait, no. So my camera's reversed, so it looked like this, right? Oh, wait, hang on. I have something in front of my face. I just realized. Here's what we'll do. We're gonna make it this view really quick. I'm gonna try my best to emulate this. This is fun for especially the audio for patrons.
Like what?
Hang on. Okay, so here we go. So she's got the book, like somewhere, around here.
Is that a book or is that a tablet?
This is a book. Oh, she's probably got a tablet.
Yeah, she's probably.
Well, I'm just gonna pretend it's a book and
okay,
like kind of just look up like this, right? Hang on.
Yeah,
I feel like the mic's got to be higher, so that way I can go like this. It's like this, and looking down, and maybe she's a little bit angled.
And she also looks like she's enjoying herself.
Okay. There you go. Snap it.
I need to
and upload it to your site. There you go.
There you go. Nice print screen job.
There you go.
That'll be up by the morning.
Perfect. You can use that as a placeholder. That was fun.
So yeah, so that's my hobby over the next couple of weeks. But like I say, if you send me the link, then hopefully that'll we might go a different route.
Oh man, that guy looks like he's having fun listening to your show.
Yeah, see what it's done is it's given me a they give you a demo version of all the pages. So I've actually had to go through and first go and strip out all of the pages because it's great to see the different versions, but I prefer to see that on a different site because all it's done is make this site really slow.
Right.
And so in fact I'm getting to a level of frustration that again it's one of these things you need to spend a bit of time immerse yourself in it to really truly understand where all the widgets are and everything. And it's because I'm used to doing it. I was tempted just to copy my Barry Kirby site over and just mess around with that. But then I saw this theme that was supposed to be podcast friendly, which it sort of is. But I don't think it links in with Blueberry as well as I would like it to, which is where all the audio is stored. So yes, it might end up looking very different by next week if I get frustrated with it and decide I can't be bothered.
Yeah. I will say with this one, you like I said, you just give it a couple pieces of information. It populates the whole thing. It pulls in your reviews automatically from all the services that it's linked to. It's so great. It allows you. Oh, Barry, dude, this is going to help you so much for yours. I totally forgot. You have guests on your show all the time. So there's this thing called guest intake. And I think I had you fill it out before I had you come on the show.
Yes. Yeah.
And I can show you what that looks like from the back end. So you filled that out. You saw what it looked like.
Yeah.
This is the guest intake page for everyone listening, watching. It's basically where anyone who wants to be a guest on the show, I'm not going to actually show the URL. It's there. Anyway, from the, because now I'm going to get spammed with it probably. Maybe, I don't know. It's probably fine. But they allow you to, fill out like a confirmation message, scheduling form. You have a link to it if that's a thing. If there's a questionnaire that you ask, you can send out like a Google Forms link or anything like that. And what that looks like from behind the scenes is if you go to, I guess it would be, hold on. It's easiest to get from here, I think. So if you have manage guests, it's right here. I think it's under, you click around, you probably find episodes, guests, profiles. This is what it looks like from behind the scenes over here, right? So you have put in your information. And I can send you an email from behind the scenes here. I can tie you to certain episodes. So that way, as I go to your guest profile, you can see all your information's right here. I can update things. So actually, I'm going to update your website. So that way it says 1202 podcast, if anyone clicks on it, right? Or unless you want me to keep this one here. It's your call.
Yeah. No, well, actually, 1202 will end up being my more ergonomicsy stuff anyway. The Barry Kirby one will end up going more political. So,
understood. We'll just keep this one then.
Well, the podcast originally, when I first set up the podcast, first set up the website, it was a blog because I do with what spare time I have, I also dabble in politics. And then I started doing the podcasting more, and so that's one of the reasons why I sort of tried. I had to go at the podcasting, then with a view to if it gets all right, I'll do a website, and just never did the website. And so now we've got to a point where we've redone all the branding and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, I've just got to bite the bullet and have a proper 1202 website, so then we can deconflict everything.
Yeah. So if you were to go to our website here, you can see, oh, hey, look, there you are. Like, let's say this was our latest episode, which I guess it is at this point, right? Because we haven't put out the new one. I've attached you to this. So your name is down here. I click on your name down here and I can see everything that you've ever been a part of on our show. And, oh, I like what this guy has to say. I want to go listen to other things that he said.
That's really cool.
So, I mean, dude, it is built for podcasting and I love it. And let me get you, here it is. Earn 20% as an affiliate. So this will get us 20% off of our next.
Cool. Everyone's a winner.
Join Friends of Podpage. Oh, I have to be a friend now. They apparently didn't make it for everyone. Anyway. Oh, Luke Skywalker. This guy's got a good head on his shoulders. And I will say the customer support for this is just phenomenal.
Cool.
So anyway,
that sounds good.
I will stop advertising for Podpage because it really is good. It is really good.
Awesome. But yeah,
I'm filling this out now. I'll probably get this to you later.
awesome. Yes, there's no rush because I'll go to bed soon, and then you've got loads of time.
Oh, hey, look at that. It's the wrong layout. There we go. That's the one I wanted. We were very close in.
I don't want to be too close to you. That'd be
man.
the Atlantic and
Oh, wait.
stuff. That's awful.
That's weird. Oh. It's because I already am a member. Let's see here. So apparently what they've done is you can be an affiliate without having the thing. Oh, that is the correct. There it is. Okay, so it was just a different link. There it is. It's podpage.com via Human Factors Cast.
Yeah.
And actually, while we're at it, I will show you how easy it is to. Again, here's one more demo of how easy it is to update something on your website. Right. I don't know what I've not used WordPress, so I don't know what that looks like from that end. But let me just show you. So I have the link copied, and we have our own resources page. You can make your own pages and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So come into resources, under page content. You can see here, this is the old bad link. I'm just going to come in here and replace that sucker with that and save it and save the page. And now that page is updated. That's it.
Cool.
So if anyone were to go to that, they would be able to. So our affiliate link is live. If you're interested in Podpage, if you're interested in starting a podcast and want to do all that, you can certainly do that. Anyway, yeah, we got about 10 minutes here in the post show. Anything that's on your mind that you want to talk about?
I'm just trying to think.
You want to play that intro one more time while I have the music killed? I like that intro. Do it one more time.
We can. I'll play you the outro. Actually, see what you think of it.
Oh yeah, do the outro. There you go.
Outros as well.
Thank you for listening to 1202, the Human Factors Podcast. Please do get in touch with your thoughts, questions, and comments. You can contact us on social media such as Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook at 1202 Podcast. See you next time. And remember, it's more than just common sense.
That's awesome. Oh man, that's
quite punchy, isn't it?
That is a banger. I feel like I'm in a club listening to your show.
See, I didn't. That's where I had the slight quandary, you see, because the other one is much more formal, I guess, in many ways. Of course, but then I think it's largely because that's all I've listened to for the past 2 years. You know, whilst when you're so used to listening to your own musical identity, I guess.
Yeah.
And so then when what I wanted something quite specific with this, and that's exactly what they've done, which is but it's so different. I'm like, is it the right thing? I think it is. I think I'm very happy with it. So yeah, no, I'm quite looking forward to the next interview so we can unleash it.
Yes, that's awesome.
Very cool.
Speaking of which, we still need to do that at some point.
Yes, that's true. In fact, right, let's do it. But you've messed it all around now by getting a new job and stuff.
Oh, I know. It's fine. It's fine.
Right. What are you doing next week? How busy are you next week? No, in fact,
let's see here. Next week.
Week of the 25th.
Let's see. Week of the 25th. I have family in town on the 25th. Let's see. I might be able to swing like 25. I can probably do 25. My 25. So with enough notice, I could probably do late evening for you. Is that okay?
Yeah, that would be perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. So work out what
you
time.
Shoot for like 2100 your time.
We can do that. Absolutely. Right.
Okay.
So that on the 25th, I shall. I'll pop it in my thing as a Nick. I will send you a. Are you a Teams or a Zoomy person?
I am a preferred Zoom, I guess. Out of the two, well, I don't have a. You know what? Just whatever your preference is. Yeah. I use Teams for work, and so it might come up as a thing.
or I might even try and use Restream because I've got that set up. on this.
Ooh.
I know, right? But just as a recording, not as a live stream.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
We
not
can do it through that too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I might use you as a slight experiment.
That's fine. Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. Right, I shall send you a link of that in an invite to that in the morning. But no, that'd be cool. And I shall send you the plan and stuff because just like I try to plan things, sort of minimal planning.
Yeah, plans are nice.
So what are you doing for the rest of your week? You got exciting things on, or is it still just getting used to the new desk and the new job?
Still getting same desk, new job. I'm still getting used to it. But yeah, I mean it's been good so far. The rest of the week, yeah, I'm not sure what I'm doing the rest of the week. I think, or I guess I'm thinking about the weekend when you say the rest of the week. Yeah, we're going to a oddities. It's a convention. It's like I guess convention's the right word. It's an oddities convention here in Portland. So that'll be fun.
So what's there?
I'm not quite sure what to expect.
Okay.
It was at the request of my wife.
So you're going to do husbandly duties.
Yes, I'm still excited for it. I just haven't had time to look at what's there, and I guess I could do that now while we're on. Let's see here. So, Oddities and Curiosities Expo is what it's called, and it looks like there's taxidermy, wet and dry preserved specimens, antiques, jewelry made from bones, skulls, and insects, original artwork, skulls and bones, curiosities, and all-around creepy, strange, and bizarre items. There will be sideshow performances and live human suspension all throughout the day.
That sounds like it could be interesting.
That's a good time.
That's it. Some things my kids would enjoy as well.
Yeah, it's yeah, we like getting spooky, you know.
I was going to say because we're getting close to Halloween, aren't we? So, do you go all out for Halloween?
Oh yes. Currently, we are in a what you would call a flat apartment, and we're kind of in the middle of home searching.
Okay.
So for now, we have something small scale. It's cute, but yes, when we own a home, we will have something large scale, and it will be like I'll get really into it. Let me put it that way. So like her kind of preference for Halloween is like sort of she gets really excited about the movies, the atmosphere, the the costumes, the like everything, and she gets excited about the decorations and everything too.
Mm-hmm.
But I live for the decorations, where everything else is kind of like secondary to me.
Yeah.
I live for the decorations, so like I'll go all out and make probably something that our hope is that we'll have enough land so that way we can kind of invite people to our land and have them walk through a haunt.
Excellent. Yeah.
And building that is going to be a ton of fun, and building it in such a way that it can be both set up and put down every year will be awesome. So I think the planning is going to be a whole thing, and then we're hoping that year over year we build it to be modular, so that way we can sort of rearrange it slightly from year to year, but then also change up the theme, where we use a lot of the same stuff, but then maybe one year's pumpkins, and then another one's skeletons, and another year's spiders, and another year and we have kind of this rotating.
Cool.
So anyway, I get really excited about that stuff.
No, we do. I mean, it's one of the things that we really enjoyed when we were in the States. Because we've been to the States around Halloween time and stuff, and we could take our kids doing the same thing, and we just love it. So we sort of bought that back to the UK with us, and we tend to do certainly previous Halloweens we tend to do with some sort of fancy dress party. This year is we're not doing it as much, but obviously the past couple of years we haven't been able to do it because of COVID and stuff. So this year is still because where we're at in Wales, it's still very, you know, the restrictions are still sort of here, but not we're in that sort of halfway zone. So we're not going to have a full-on party or anything, but in the way that we would used to do. But we're still hopefully going to do some, you know, get the decorations out and all that. So we're going for a zombie theme this year.
Ooh.
So you know, the kids can get dressed up, and I don't care whether the kids get dressed up. I can get dressed up, and we can have a bit of a laugh. So I'm really looking forward to it this year.
That's good. I think that's as good a note as ending to end on. I think
So.
I think we'll go ahead and get out of here. So if you've been watching around, sticking around with us the entire time, thank you. Really appreciate people who watch live and contribute to the discussion. It's always fun to hear and talk to you all. No sign off. So anyway, bye everyone. Thank you, Barry, again for filling in.
No worries, and see you again soon.
All right. See you soon.
Bye.
All right.